Process of formation for a religious is really very similar for all communities, but for our community in particular, there are some nuances to it. So when a young woman enters our community, they're a candidate. And candidacy is 6 months. The women, they enter our community and they just live our life. They wear long sleeve shirts and long skirts and just experience our life and continue to discern whether this is what God is calling them to. After 6 months, they can request then to become a postulant in our community. And that comes from the word postulate or to ask the question. And the question they're asking at that time is really threefold. It's, does God want this? Do I want this? And do I have the capacity to live the life? The young woman at this stage wears a gray jumper and a white blouse. They continue to live in the convent they've lived in since they entered. They live amongst the sisters. They experience all the parts of the apostolate. They take classes at that time and continue to live our simple life, working, doing chores in the convent, as well as just living the life of a sister. At the end of that 6 months, then they can request to become a novice in our community. So novice comes from a word that means to begin, to be a beginner in our community. And this is really where the young woman, she begins to become a member of our community. She wears a white veil and a gray habit of St. Francis, which for us is gray. The young woman, too, at this point, she is taking on a new name, which signifies her mission in our religious community. As St. Peter took on the name from Jesus, called him Peter, before he was called Simon, and Jesus gave him this new name to signify his new mission in the church. In novitiate, this is a more intense time of growing in your prayer life with Jesus. It's really like an engagement time with the Lord. It can be more intense because the prayer increases during this time and distractions are removed, so there's less contact with your family and less involvement with the apostolate. But all is necessary so you can begin to give more of Jesus and less of yourself. At the end of novitiate of 2 years, then the young woman can request to make first vows in our community. And at this point, they make the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And so when a young woman at first vows makes these vows, they someone may ask, why would you want to take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience? Well, ultimately, that's a good question, but it's because Jesus did this first. We're not just doing it in vain or for some cruel reason, but out of love. We do it for Jesus. And so at first vows, the woman gets a crown of white roses. It's really a joyful day of profession, like a wedding day. And the woman then continues on in her professed life then after that and renewing her vows to Jesus. I often think, what a precious gift that is for a young woman to choose each year to remake her vows to Jesus, seeing everything in reality of what it is, the community for what it is, and her own weaknesses and strengths for what it is, all in the sight of God's love. And each year she renews those vows in the context of the community to say yes again. And at the end of 4 to 6 years of making vows again and again, that she can then make final profession. And this is where we say, yes, Jesus, I give you everything. You are enough. And this, at final profession, is where we receive a gold simple ring on our finger to represent now we are the spouse of Christ forever. So the sister in their ring will have a personal inscription of what they feel the Lord would want them to have in their ring, signifying their relationship with the beloved. So at final profession, the sister gets a crown of thorns, and this is to signify the solemnness of this next step. And so this is really the beginning of our religious life. This is where we say, Jesus, you're everything. And we lay down our lives. We literally go prostrate on the floor before we make our profession of vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And we receive a gold simple ring that inside is inscribed, personally, our relationship with our beloved. And so this is where we say, Jesus is truly enough for me.